My name is Sheila Lamb, and I'm with the Virginia SBDC Network. For those of you who are not familiar with our organization, the Virginia Small Business Development Center is a partnership program between the U.S. Small Business Administration, George Mason University, and local host institutions throughout Virginia. With 26 locations across the Commonwealth, we provide training and technical assistance to small businesses in their local communities. Our one-on-one advising services are available at no charge. Today's webinar, Zero Trust Security for Small Businesses, is presented by the Virginia SBDC Network. Please say the date for our next cyber webinar, Cybersecurity on a Budget. That's March 25th at 12:30, and I'll drop the link into the chat momentarily. We are recording today's presentation, and it will be posted on our website, virginiasbdc.org. Due to the large number of participants, everyone's microphone is muted and the chat feature is turned off. But if you have questions during the presentation, you can type those into the Q&A box, and we will adjust them at the end of the session. We have also enabled the live transcript function, which you can show or hide via your own meeting controls. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our presenter for today's session, Kiana Gainey. Kiana is a 20-plus year IT and cybersecurity industry veteran and has served as Chief Executive Officer for SecureTech 360, located in Springfield, Virginia, since its inception in 2010. She is also the Cyber Industry Specialist for the Virginia SBDC. Welcome, Kiana.
Thank you, Sheila, and welcome to everyone. So let's just jump right on in. I like to call this our spring forward as we're starting to think about what to do with our businesses. And one of the things that come to mind is zero trust. Next slide. So again, thank you for the wonderful introduction. Today, we'll just be giving out some practical tips about how you can implement zero trust in your small business. It's a new framework that's been out for some time, but now with everything from us using more devices online to more remote work, there has been a need to be able to put a framework that talks about what zero trust can mean for you and your small business. Then I'll end it with giving you some resources and some next steps. We'll take some questions, and then we'll have some contact information if you want to dig a little bit deeper, or if you just have some one-off questions that are very more specific to your organization or business. Next slide. So yes, a little bit about myself. I've been doing this for about 20 years. I'm also a small business owner. I also worked in the nonprofit sector. So I got you covered on most ends for most industries. And so a lot of the things that you'll see me talking about today will be things that I've learned over the years for larger organizations which you can also apply to your small businesses. And I've also always had to keep in mind those cost-effective solutions so that as a small business owner, I know that that's something that we take very seriously. Next slide. So first question that usually comes to mind when I do these presentations is, what is zero trust? Zero trust is just a framework that you can put together that talks mostly about verifying information or verifying things that you already have in place. And then also to limit access to certain individuals that are within your organizations or even partners that are outside your organization. And to verify everything, all devices, all users, who's on my infrastructure, what am I using daily? What security policies do I have in place? Has everyone in my organization been trained? And if they've been trained, do they know what to do in the event of an emergency? If there's a breach, who has access to what? Because then it becomes very granular. You may have people that have access to maybe human resources data. Do they necessarily need information for financial data? So some things could be very role specific based on how they support your organization or how they support within your organization. So these are all things that you can think about. Also, if let's say you're giving out devices, it could be mobile devices, laptops, any of those things of those nature. Make sure that everyone who has access to those devices, that they understand what access that they need to have. And if they need things like, you have some users that may need power user access versus privileged user access. Privileged user access can give them more access to different groups that they may not need access to. So you got to think about that as well. So even if you're using certain applications, who needs access to that? If you're using certain databases, who needs access to that? It could be something as small as even folders. I know in our organization, we use SharePoint. And so even as we're setting up our SharePoint site, which is a site that you can share and store information, I also have it more granular to who can access certain things on what folders. And I even reduce I put in logs to see who's also who has access, but also I verify that the individuals that I gave access to, that they're not either giving themselves more access to certain things or how often they're accessing. If I see things that are kind of suspicious in nature, I also verify that as well. So it's creating a model that you're verifying everything, you're limiting access, you're verifying everything that's within your infrastructure. Why zero trust matters, especially in 2025, glad you asked. 60% of small businesses close within 6 months of a major cyber attack. And that doesn't necessarily have to be even small businesses. You're seeing a lot of things on the news that are coming out daily about different cyber attacks. And the only weapon that, regardless of your size, that every organization have is prevention. Prevention is key to your resilience and also helps you come up with a plan just in the event that something does happen, and also putting things in place so that you can understand as the landscape is changing for your organization, what you can do to make sure that you're implementing these small tips. So our goal today is just to give you more information to equip you with those knowledge and tools to support your organization, and then connect you to any other resources for ongoing support. Next slide. So again, we talked a little bit about why it matters, why it's so important. There has been a shift for crucial small businesses to really implement zero trust to help reduce the cost of data breaches. Right now, they're estimating, are you listening closely? Approximately $1 million per incident, right? Embracing zero trust not only enhance your security, but it also position your small business as a trustworthy partner in the marketplace. It can show that you're adopting the latest threat, you're adopting preventive tools to help you with this ever-changing landscape that's coming for us full speed, regardless of what your size is. And so as you starting to think about your organization and what you have in place now. So I always say, you can start small. Maybe it could be an emphasis of looking at what you currently have in your environment. How can you protect those things better? Who has access to those? Have they been trained? What type of training? Do they need more training? If you have put together a plan, have you tested that plan? I always say that one great best practice is to implement training for employees at the beginning when they first come in, and then whenever a significant change occurs. And then if you do like annual training with your employees, when you find out, or you do like different exercises, if you find some lessons learned, the things that you've learned along the way, update those plans and making sure that you continue to, put together those programs that will help be able to navigate this new landscape. Next slide. So again, first thing that comes to mind every time I think about implementing something new as a small business owner, the budget, right? So I always like the B word is not the boogeyman, it's the budget. Putting together certain basic cyber hygiene practices are things that you can do that are low cost, that are definitely very effective. The biggest preventive tool that you have in your arsenal is education, conducting those regular cybersecurity training, helping to raise that awareness, letting every employee understand their responsibility to the operation as a whole, but also to some of the things that they have within their own scope of work, right? So if they're using mobile devices, they're using laptops, understanding certain things. If you're going to go out of town, make sure that you don't leave your laptop in a car, or you take your laptop and you lock it up, making sure that you implement things like strong passwords. If you have the ability to do multi-factor authentication, using complex passwords as another layer of security. I know don't make them so complex so you forget them and then you have to write them down and then you have them all over places where people can actually find them as well. So make it to where there's something that you can remember, but strong enough that someone won't be able to easily guess as well. Those are just very low cost things that you can do. And then they also have some resources where you can also, before you commit to a password, where you can see the likelihood of how long it would take for someone to actually try to hack into your password. I like to use that. It's a great tool. I think we have it as one of our resources to make sure that you can use that as well. But it's very low cost. It's actually free. You can put in what you want to do as a potential password, and it gives you the likelihood of someone hacking that password. And then it also gives you some suggestions as well. Another thing you can do is backing up your data. A lot of the applications that we use have a function where you can back up your data, but then there's other low-cost resources that you can use, like maybe using a Google Drive or using some of the other ones that are out on the marketplace that are very low, very inexpensive, but it can also help you as you're trying to implement zero trust on a budget, and also putting together those basic cyber hygiene things that you can do in your infrastructure to help your team continue to understand the importance of, um, you know, protecting your infrastructure. Next slide. So again, a couple other affordable strategies when you're thinking about zero trust. I think I touched on this a little bit about role-based access control. And what that means is putting together an access control list of individuals within your organization and then mirroring it with what their roles are. So that's a great strategy, so that it's only the people that need the information or needs to work within the organization to be able to get to certain data, make sure that they're the only ones that have access, and then make sure that you turn on a way that you can put on logs to also monitor them as well. And then let's say when individuals leave the organization, if they do have privileged access or more of an administrative access, making sure that you remove them immediately so that once they're outside the organization, that they won't be able to come back in and do some nefarious things. And just because they have privileged access doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do, something to hurt your organization, but those are just great tips that you can put into place. So on my out processing checklist, I have a section where I try to verify what the role of the individual was in the organization and what access that they had, especially if it was administrative access. And then I have a rule that within a certain time period that their access have to be pulled immediately to make sure that they're not able to access it once they left the building or they turned in their equipment or their laptops, that they don't have access to that anymore. Other things you can do is to secure your business is always protect your customer data. That could be as simple as if you're sending something that may be sensitive in nature, you can put a password on it. Or if you're sending something through an email, you can encrypt that file before you send it. And then maybe on another form of technology or medium, maybe through a cell phone or maybe even picking up the phone, you can send over what that password is. I never use the same medium to send over information so that it can also kind of, if someone's trying to hack it, they may have one piece, but they won't have the second piece. Those are just simple things that you can do that don't cost you anything. And then, also just implement a step-by-step procedure on how you want to reach a zero trust framework in your organization without breaking the budget. So maybe you start with one thing and then over maybe a 3 to 6 month period, you start rolling out almost like a project plan. You think about it. If you're a law firm or if you're a healthcare clinic, it's all going to look different for you. So understanding what your organizational needs are and making sure that you understand the risks that are associated with those organizational needs, identifying what are the most critical things. That could be how you can set priorities, deal with the critical things, the critical items first, and then maybe put together something for things that are more moderate, and then things are more low, have low impact, which can maybe you can work on later on, but really, focus more on those critical, high functional things that you need to do within your organization. Next slide. So again, just some key takeaways. As you may have heard me keep stumping that preparation is key, implementing those proactive measures such as regular security audits. And this doesn't have to be where you have to pay a third party to come in. This is something that you can do within your own organization. You can do what I like to call like a self-assessment. You can do that on a quarterly basis or an annual basis where you just look at your organization as a whole and you think about like just how you were putting together your business plan. If you don't have a plan in place, put together a security plan. What does that look like for your organization? How often do you want to conduct training? How often do you want to do things like incident response planning to minimize risk? Putting together, I like to call them tabletop exercises, where you sit around maybe a staff meeting or with one or two employees and you run through some scenarios on what to do in the event of emergency. Put together things like a roster of maybe all your important vendors that you want to keep maybe in a safe place, maybe not something, not maybe not even on site, but maybe somewhere on another place where you, in the event of the emergency, that you can get to it as well. Putting together those small key things will be able to help you implement something like zero trust, but also those are just great basic cyber hygiene things that you can do within your organization. Also recognizing the current landscape and how it impacts your small businesses. So for example, depending on who your customers are and who you support, making sure you understand what are the emerging cybersecurity threats, and you put together plans in place to make sure that you are implementing something that creates a proactive approach versus a reaction. I always say prevention is definitely key. Preparation is definitely key. Staying proactive to help your business is going to be key to reducing risk. Zero trust applies to all businesses, regardless of the size. It has a framework that said never trust, but always verify approach, which helps reduce risk. So, and that could be even within your own infrastructure. You hire someone, it's been months. You trust this is a trusted employee, but things change. You never know why people decide to do things that they're doing. That's why there's a whole mindset about the insider threat. So as a small business owner, think about that. If you're putting things in place so that you're taking a more proactive approach, you can always continue to be testing out certain things you have in place to make sure that the intent of an individual who's working in your organization stays the way that you have put into place. So trusting them with the information is one thing, but also checking behind and making sure that it's a reoccurring thing is something that you can keep to help you verify things as things are changing within your landscape, and also reducing the risk long term. Next slide. So again, zero trust is definitely achievable for your small business. It's really more of a mindset and a culture change for some small businesses, but some things you're probably already doing, but you probably never knew what the language was or how to put it together as a framework. And just putting together those small little steps can help you put that together for your small business. It helps protect your data. It helps protect your small business. It builds your customer trust. It strengthens your organization long-term for resilience, and it helps you stay prepared for the unexpected, whether it's something that's happening on the outside of your business, whether it's something that's happening within your business. It helps you look at it from not just cyber threats are outside, but also cyber threats could be inside. So it's marrying both approaches that you're probably already doing every day, putting it all into one framework to make sure that you're protecting your business, but also helping you stay proactive and keeping your business secure long term so that you can be able to minimize risk or even reduce some risk at sometimes. And those would definitely be key to implementing a zero trust framework for your small business. Next slide. So any questions? I know we covered a lot in a very small period of time, so I want to save some time for some questions.
We don't have any questions at the moment, so if you all think of anything, we've got Kiana's brain to pick live right now, so go ahead and drop them into the Q&A box. Okay, let's see, we've got one question here. Would you provide an example of a security system a small business startup with 3 employees should have? And furthermore, would you cite some specific tools to use? What should be your budget for this effort?
So depending on your small business, there are so many resources or things that you can use that are on the marketplace, but it really will definitely depend mostly on your budget and what you're trying to secure, right? So if you have a larger office space, I've known some folks that have used ADT. I've known some folks that have used Ring. Ring has some great security features as well. There are some other products that are out there on the marketplace. I know some of the other smaller businesses use things like Data Watch, where they have the actual access cards, and then those are also things that they give each employee to be able to come in and out of their office spaces. So the first thing I would say is to analyze what your function of your small business is, analyze the risk. If you only have 3 employees, depending on what your small business and the function of your small business and the type of data that you're processing, maybe you have a high traffic area where you have a lot of deliveries and there's a lot of people coming in. So you have to think about all those different things as you're thinking about what cameras to put in, who will have access to those cameras, who's going to manage those cameras, right? Because you don't want to create an environment that is so secure that you can't navigate your day-to-day, but you don't want to create an environment where you can be easily infiltrated without putting certain things in place. And then you have to also think about your budget, right? So there are some products that can start at the high end of maybe $100 a month that can go all the way up to tens of thousands of dollars. It depends on, what you're trying to secure and what you're doing for your organization and what functions your organizations are providing, either as a service to your customers or things that you're protecting within your own business. So I've had some small business owners who have trade secrets that are very important to them. And so they went as far as putting a receptionist at their front desk, and they had every person that was coming in and out of their organization, because they were getting a lot of deliveries, sign in and out. And then they also put a camera so that they can see who's coming in and out. And then at the end of the day, the CEO would take the actual access list and make sure, that's where that zero trust comes in at, to make sure that the receptionist wasn't just letting people sign in and not signing out, was making sure that the dates and time matched, that there was full names. And when there was things that were not happening, that was a time to educate, to say, hey, I've been doing random inspections. Out of the 3 out of 5, you make sure that people sign in, but you make sure people then sign out. So that's kind of where we're talking about with that zero trust. Not everyone is trying to do things that are nefarious, but then there's just people that sometimes they maybe got busy with something else, but because they had trade secrets that they were trying to protect, they wanted to know exactly who was coming in and out of that building, and that was something that was important to the CEO. So that's just an example of, as a small business owner, those are things that you have to take into consideration when you're thinking about what's best for your small business.
Let's see, another question. Do you have a suggestion? Azure is best or others?
So depending, again, I'm always going to lead to my answer when it comes to who's best, because best can mean a lot to different people depending on your organization, right? There are some places that they would say that Azure is great for their functions, depending on what their functions are. There are some that would say that I've been places where it's Apple land, right? So everything is an iPad. They use, I've had places where Google was the place that they use most of their functions. So again, when you're thinking about what's best, that's something that you should decide based on what's best for your organization's needs. Look at what your functions for your organization, what functions do you serve for your customers, and what is the path of least of resistance for your organization as far as your employees. So it could be, if you're used to using Microsoft products and you've generally been using that for the majority of the functions within your small business, it's easier to put protection in place for one OS system versus several, right? Because of several, there's different things that you have to do for each of them. So I would say, do a quick assessment, even with your own employees. Find out from them what's working, what's not working. I've been went into organizations where they were using a Microsoft product, but they really should have been using more of Apple products. And the only way we found that out was we did a survey with their employees. We talked about what their functions were. When the small business owners started the organization, they were using one thing. But then as their needs and their customer needs change, it's an ever growing landscape. And with most small businesses, where you start is not necessarily where you're going to end. They were doing things that were more graphic heavy and needed more of the Apple products to be able to support some of those graphics. And so From that assessment, they were able to shift into using more Apple products, but then that came with a cost. And then it also came with some training, and then it also came with some additional things that they had to put into place. So again, the best thing is going to be what's best for your organization.
What product types do you recommend for CRM protection at a zero trust level?
So again, that will be something that you can look at what your organization function is, because there's so many products on the marketplace. I don't necessarily have a brand of choice that I would recommend. The recommendation would be based on what the function of your small business. So if you have a particular product that you're using, do your research and see which ones fared as far as a ranking system, and read the reviews, right? I always read the customer reviews, especially if it's another, and I also go into my small business community and I always, poll to see which products is working the best for you. And then I even break it down to more granular based on my organization, because it's going to be different for healthcare than maybe different for, if I own a flower shop. It's going to be different based on the needs of your organization. So do your research, look at what your organization's functions are, what protections are you trying to put into place, and what product will meet that protection level for you.
Let's see, another one looking for recommendations, but are there certain antivirus or malware prevention software that you would recommend?
So again, same answer would be, depending on your organization, there are certain functions that are within your OS that maybe there already that you can use, that may be free, that come with maybe some subscriptions that you're already using. But then of course we have the McAfee's, we have the Norton, and then we have some of the newer ones that are out on the marketplace as well. It's going to depend on what functions are best suited for your small business and what you're trying to protect. Also, cost is also another thing that come into play. Some subscription services they can run you from anywhere from $20 a month all the way up to $1,500 a month, depending on what you're trying to protect and what tools and things that you need to use within your organization. Again, I always say, read the reviews, do your research, pair it to what works for your business. Don't let someone sell you a whole bunch of additional products and services that you do not need for your business, that's going to cost you or be more costly for you down the road with your small business. So you don't want to go out of business trying to put things into place, but you want to be in business by putting certain things into place.
Okay, so let's see. What about tools that serve the online e-commerce cybersecurity standpoint? Can you describe some of the risk there?
Yes. So when you're talking about doing anything online, if you're exchanging credit card information, if you're talking about having an online store, if you're building an online store, maybe with a third-party application, make sure that you read the fine print, because there may be some additional privacy policies or things that you have to put on your site that gives your customers like a warm and fuzzy that you will make sure that you're protecting their information. If you do have the resources, I always say seek legal counsel for anything when you're dealing with an online or e-commerce, because there are certain things that you have to put into place when you're thinking about taking credit card information and protecting people's information. Think about yourself as a consumer. I go to sites, I look at their website, I look at what security they have on their site, I look at their reviews, I look at how my information is going to be protected. I take it a step further. I read the privacy policies. I read all of those different things. It may seem like a lot, but it's not, because it's your information. We've all have experienced when there's a major breach and you get that letter in the mail and they say, oops, your information was leaked, because maybe a third party, not necessarily us, but a third party leaked your information. So see how your information is going to be used. So put yourself in that same seat as the person that is, taking information as an online store, making sure that you put those things in place to make sure that you're securing yourself, your small business. If you can afford it, pay for things like cyber risk insurance as well, just in case something happens and you have that level of insurance for yourself. If you are have employees that have access to the online store or have access to certain things, put together those role-based access that we talked about, making sure who only needs access to certain things have access to certain things, making sure that those things are running in place. And then always, 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 check behind what's going on, verify what's going on, make sure that you understand what's going on as a small business owner, because you're ultimately responsible if something goes on.
Follow up to that question. So is Windows security, which is provided as part of the MS platform, adequate for a startup to protect against phishing, spam, etc.? The price is great. What are its limitations?
So any form of security is going to get you one step closer to reducing risk, right? But also keep into mind phishing, spam, those type of attacks. The number one way to adequately reduce that risk will be training, because your employees, you can put all these things in place. And I don't care, I've been to small, large, everything in between. I have seen the most sophisticated systems that will blow your mind. And you know what's the first thing that can take all of that money and budget and everything that we just talked about is one employee clicking on something and sending something out, and it causes a hole that was probably this big to this big. So those things are great, but also implementing that training, that education, making sure that they understand. I do exercises where I even send out random things to see if they will respond. I go as far as even calling to see if they will give out information, because you want to keep it top of mind, because sometimes people just go on with their day-to-day things and they're not even thinking about it, but it can become a huge security risk. And then depending on who you're supporting, that's one person can be responsible for taking out so many different things, because it was just something that they just didn't know, or they wasn't trained, or it wasn't something that was a part of their everyday culture.
How about, excuse me, where can a startup in Virginia get that no low-cost training?
Oh, you're in the right place. So give us a shameless plug. There are some great organizations out there, but the SBDC does a wonderful job. If you ever go to our website, there's a plethora of trainings that are already there, free of charge. If there are some trainings, I don't know if there is $1 associated, it's very low cost again, right? To kind of help you navigate there. They have wonderful counselors that can help you as well to kind of navigate as a startup. So take some time, go to our website. If you need some follow-up services, also reach out as well. But yeah, that would be a great way to start. Outside the SBA is another great resource. CISA is an amazing organization that's all dedicated to helping small business owners, all users, to understand some training that's available that's either low cost, no cost, or just some, FYI, some best practices and tips that can help you in your small business. So I don't like to use the word free because free sounds cheap. I like to say complimentary.
There you go. I'm gonna drop the link into the chat in a moment that goes direct to our cybersecurity spot on our website. We have a few more questions, Kiana, but I'm going to go ahead and go to your next slide for the links and resources, and remind everyone that you will get a copy of these slides, so you'll have them, so you don't have to copy any of this down. But I want to go ahead and put that up. But also just remind, Kiana, I do have some more questions to go through before, in case you wanted to talk about some of that. But the next question is, I'm losing my voice. What cybersecurity is legally required to do business in Virginia? And what about if you want to sell to the government?
Okay, so that's a great question. So legally, as a small business owner, just like what you put together, any type of protection levels for your business, there's not a legal requirement. There are some things that you should just put into place, just as depending on what you're servicing for your clients. That's just best practices. So it's not necessarily a legal requirement. It's more of just, hey, these are some best practices that you can put into place to help reduce some risk. When you're thinking about selling to the government, depending on, there is some requirements that you need to do just to set up your business to sell to the government. for anyone, depending on what type of business you're servicing, if it's something, there's like a whole checklist and different levels. So if you're just doing something that's like a level one for a CMCC, level one, you just have to do a self-assessment. I think we kind of went through that in the slides, where you just take a deep dive into your organization and you list different things that you're doing for those protection levels. And do any of you use a MacBook? Yes, there are some users, a lot of users that use MacBooks. MacBooks are great. They have a lot of different functionality. They also have a lot of embedded security within them that you can use as well. Who can help me if I want to grow and be able to do work that involves cross state lines or even internationally? Again, I'm going to do another shameless plug. SBDC is a great resource. They have counselors that can help you kind of navigate everything. And then also, I think PTAC now is called Apex. Apex is a great resource to help you be able to put together a plan to help you position yourself to sell to the government, because it's all about positioning. There are things and requirements. Every government agency has its own level of regulations. And so I'm a small business owner that also sells to the government. When I first got started, the best advice that a counselor, and I started off as an SBDC, I use Apex. So all these resources that I'm telling you, I've used them myself. When I was a small business owner and I only had one employee and was just myself, these things helped me put together plans to be able to scale my business. So great resources to get started there. They helped me along the way. Even to this day, I still sit through certain webinars and trainings at things, because the landscape is always changing depending on what's going on, what threats, what administration is in. Everything is always changing. So you want to stay abreast of those things. So it's not like a one size fit all type of thing. It's a constant changing landscape that you have to keep up with. And they can help you kind of navigate where to set up your business. My business is set up in different states, so there's registrations, there's costs. It's a lot of planning on your part as a small business owner. So I would just come up with all the different things that you want to do. I love resource maps, and then I put resource maps together on who can help me get to those different things, and then what it takes to do it, right? And then put together a plan on how you can navigate all of those different things. So great question, and good luck on starting your business and selling to the government and going across state lines and thinking internationally. I think it's wonderful.
And thank you, Kiana. And I did just drop the link, how to get started with the SBDC if you're not already in our system. That'll get you to your local SBDC who can help with all of that.
Yes.
Okay, so we have another question.
Okay.
I am using Stripe to collect credit card payments. Is it correct to assume that their system is safe, or should we always implement additional safeguards? What kind of safeguards would this be?
So Stripe is a great platform that a lot of small business owners use. It has certain protection levels within the application itself that gives you a certain level of security. So I would say that as far as we're collecting credit cards or collecting credit card payments. So Stripe is great. Is it correct to assume that their system is safe? Again, Stripe has this, they're a business as well. And just like their business have certain requirements that they have to keep up, regulatory requirements, there's always an ever-changing landscape that comes with that as well. No company is exempt from fraud, from hacks, from attacks. So staying abreast of what Stripe is doing, reading those privacy policies on if something does happen, what does that mean for your small business? Also having a backup. If Stripe goes down, what does that look like for me and my small business? Do I have another form of payment that I can collect as a small business? So there's things that you can put in place, not necessarily saying that Stripe is not safe, but there are things that you can put into place as a small business owner to make sure that you're prepared if something does happen. Who would you contact first if you couldn't collect your credit card payment? What that would look like as far as your employees understanding what to do in the event that something happens. So again, great platform. Definitely will still read my privacy policies, Definitely will stay abreast if there's something that's changing every day. We don't find out about breaches until we get that letter in the mail, unfortunately. So making sure that you're just kind of staying abreast of what the items that you're using within your organization are definitely key to help you put together those safeguards.
Wonderful. Another question, what companies offer cyber risk insurance?
So a lot of the small business insurance companies offer a cyber risk insurance. Sometimes they offer it as, you may even have it within your own policy. So I always tell small business owners, if you have a representative that helped you put together your, or gave you, put together your quote for your small business insurance, read and make sure that you don't already have something there first before you go and pay for something else. But there's some great ones out there. I mean, Hartford has one, Hiscox has some. I've seen some small business owners use some things with their own carriers that they have. So start with your carrier first, get a quote, always get 3 quotes to see who has the best quote, but also see what that insurance is going to protect you from, because it may be different depending on what organization you support or what type of information or data that you're supporting. And they may even have different prices based on the amount that you need. So if you want to start small, let's say you may need 250,000, 500. So those are things that you have to come up with based on your budget. But yeah, so all of them offer some form of cyber risk insurance, but the 2 that come to mind, Hartford, Hiscox, are popular ones that I've seen in the marketplace that I've heard great things about.
Great. Another question. So on our website, there's an app called Posture. It's available for a year, and it's on our SBDC cyber platform. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes. So Posture is a great partner. Love Posture. Posture definitely put together a great application that helps small business owners like yourself navigate all of the different things that we talked about today. It helps put together you a security plan to kind of stay ahead of some of these threats. I think they have some small business training on there. There are a lot of things that are on there that are free of charge, complimentary, but there are some things that have some costs associated with it. But it's very low cost as an entry point. If you think about how much an hour you would spend on like bringing in a consultant to do some of these things, it definitely helps you kind of navigate them as a small business owner. Definitely highly recommend it if you can use it. Definitely take advantage of it there. It's great.
I'll let you look at that next question.
Does Posture pay as? No. So we do not take payments for recommendations. These are just, we actually get, you'll be surprised. The audience members are the people that come to our trainings and seminars. They give us feedback on how great these applications are working. And these are things that we've actually kind of tested the market and saw that it's worked for a lot of small business owners. So that was one of the reasons why when they offered to give that complimentary service to the SBDC, that it was a great value add for the SBDC. So it's not something, we don't get $1 from it. They're not paying us. We're not paid actors, even though I know I would love to have, as a second job or maybe another career, become some kind of influencer or Hollywood actor, but no. They're a great platform, great platform.
Okay, so we still have some time, about 15 minutes for questions, but Kiana, do you want to elaborate on any of these links and resources?
Yeah, so great organizations. The Federal Trade Commission, they have a great cybersecurity for small business. A lot of resources, a lot of training, a lot of things that can definitely help you put together those plans. If you're thinking about zero trust, if you're just thinking about what do I do, is I'm just setting up as a small business owner and I'm thinking about cybersecurity and how to protect my business. I think I mentioned CISA, the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, great agency, all dedicated to helping all businesses, all users just be great global citizens as they're thinking about cybersecurity. NIST, if you're more thinking about putting together an architecture that we talked about that has some of that least privilege, zero trust, role-based access, what that will look like, great examples, things that you can use to put together architecture for your small business. They do a wonderful job. great information, wealth of knowledge. Definitely highly recommend you spend some time at these three resources to help you as you're navigating what it will look like to implement this in your organization.
Great. We don't have any other questions. Just a thank you for Rachel for that last answer and all the answers you provided today, and I agree. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
And just there are, let's see, here's the contact information, and there's posture. And you're going to get these slides, so don't write these down. You're going to get these. You're going to be able to link right, to everything that you need. So, do you have any last words of wisdom for us, Kiana?
Yes. So as we're doing our spring cleaning and we're thinking about, the wonderful weather that's coming and the beautiful flowers that are coming out, take this time as we change over seasons. I always like to do a lot of my changes when it deals with cybersecurity or my business. I do them based on the seasons. So take this time to use that to be able to implement, some new and inventive ways to be able to navigate cybersecurity for your small business, take advantage of some great resources that are on our website, Posture as well, some of our past webinars, future webinars. We're here to help you as you navigate this. You're not alone. And for my one that wants to do government contract, Apex is another great organization that's there to help you kind of put together how to sell to the government. And I don't know if I mentioned for the CMCC portion as well, there are some other great programs out there to help you kind of navigate that as well. So thank you. You guys have been a wonderful audience. And I hope that today kind of just gives you some tips and some tools to be able to see that it doesn't cost $1 million to put some things into place. There's everyday things that you can do to make your organization better.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank everyone for the great questions. I think it
Yeah.
helps everyone when we have questions come in. So I want to thank everyone for attending. I want to thank Kiana again. And I want to remind you that you will receive an email with a link to the recording and to the slides. If you would like to sign up for upcoming webinars or access recorded webinars, please visit virginiasbdc.org/training. This webinar and other SBDC resources are designed to be used in collaboration with your local SBDC advisors. You can sign up for a free and confidential session by emailing help@virginiasbdc.org or via our website. And we do hope to see you all at our next session. Take
Yes,
care,
thank you.
everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye. Have a
Bye.
great day.
You too. Bye.